Happy
Sure.
Friday, everybody. Welcome back to the Dinner Dialogue. My name is Josh, and today we have Manny Katakis, the co-founder of the media group TriPower, who owns muscle cars and trucks. Manny, to kick us off, can you give us a little bit of your background in the industry and how you got started?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I started about in 2000, I think late 2009, early 2010. I got my foot in the door in automotive journalism, and my previous background had me building up a network of sites where I was a managing partner, and we went from a couple hundred views a month to a couple million. And over that time span, learned I learned so much, right? I learned like what's really crucial and what's really essential to getting a site off the ground, how much patience you need to have, and then also like the confidence that you need that, say for example, like if there's a dip, like there's a dip in traffic this week, like it's okay. There's going to be recovery. Like there's no reason to sound the alarm. But also just like all the intricacies of staffing and how to generate revenue, and like just the editorial process and like SEO and how integral it is now in a modern media site. And it's like it's been a pretty sweet adventure, and I'm very proud and very happy of where it's taken me so far, especially as I co-founded Muscle Cars and Trucks just in the spring summer of 2019, and we've come
Yeah.
pretty far. We're pushing up on 500,000 views on the month, just in two and a what is it 2.5 years of operating. So it's been great, and I'm very happy that I'm here with you as a revenue partner, and it's really helped us move the needle forward.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think too, is in 2022 that you started before COVID and you managed a digital property, which I do want to hear about that. But backing up just a little bit on the automotive journalist. So how did you go from writing and creating copy and content over to building out an entire digital property? Because you said there's a couple of different pieces that you have to pull together. You had the copy piece, but like what made you transition over?
I it was the entrepreneurial background that came with it. So not just the journalism, which I had a degree and I'm formally trained in it, and that kind of gives me an edge over, we'll say, like other members of the automotive media, which you'd be surprised. There's not a lot of them that actually have journalism degrees, but pretty much since I want to say like 2000, I don't know, 12 or so, a long time ago. Ultimately, I've always been a part of like the back end, and I've always learned kind of on the fly what it took to build an entity and to build a site. And with Muscle Cars and Trucks, I've taken all that knowledge and all the learnings from that decade or so, and applied it. And it's like, because I already kind of know the way. I know the path up the mountain. There's been less detours, there's been less distractions, there's been less like pitfalls, and the growth is coming quicker, it's coming smoother. I basically, like, as a managing partner in my previous company, it was on me to do a lot of the front of house stuff. So it was on me to do the stories, and we can talk about like how important like volume is when it
Right.
comes to creating a viable website property, like not just monthly but daily volume, um, and also like kind of finding the right people to help complete those tasks, finding qualified writers, if not create them. I've basically built um, you know a lot of writers that maybe just had like a communicate. They were in college. They had journalism communications backgrounds. Took them on as interns, and now they've like gone on to, they have successful careers themselves. So it's like but this is kind of like my place. I could probably take an easier automotive like journalism job at just someone else's outlet, but that's not me. So I've been
Right.
willing to sort of take the road less traveled, so to speak. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure out stuff along the way, but it's kind of like, you can kind of see the pieces as they come to you, and where they fit a little easier, and that just comes from the experience of having that entrepreneurial background on top of the journalism, where I don't have a lot of the expertise would be, say, like where my partner Jason comes in, and he does a lot of the web development, and he does a lot of the we'll say like the ad integration, the codes and everything. Like I don't necessarily it's not that I don't want to know how that all works. I just, like, I don't have the time, and in this like era of specialization, I know where I'm the specialist at. Jason and our other partner Chris, like, we all kind of trust each other, and we all kind of have like our lane, and we all make sure that our assignments are being taken care of, and that those we don't necessarily have to step on each other's toes. We just, like, we check in, we trust each other, and I think like trust and understanding is also a huge reason why we've been able to get this far. um
Right.
we've known each other for a long time, and we knew that we kind of have lightning in a bottle when it came to the three of us, because we all had those pieces, right? Like, they were missing, like, if they ever wanted to do like a website, which they have before. They had a again, Camaro forum, they had a Camaro podcast, and where I kind of came in was, like, I was usually a guest on that show, and we just thought one day that, like, hey, what if, you know?
Yeah.
And that was turns out it was a pretty good idea, and
Yeah.
that our instincts were right, and that we did have something, and they've sort of trusted me. They trusted my vision. With Muscle Cars and Trucks, what we really try to deliver every day is kind of like, the distillate of what enthusiasts care about, and enthusiasts more than anything are really digest the content more than the sort of like the casual, we'll say, like, reader, customer, whoever. And there's also more to write about. So, like, for example, there's so much, like, at Muscle Cars and Trucks, we kind of like pull away like the boring cars, and we just write about the fun stuff. So, like, Ford Raptors and Dodge Challengers and Corvettes, and pretty much all the fun stuff in the domestic realm that people just can't seem to get enough of. And we try to push stuff out on a daily basis. If we can get 9, 10, 11, 12 stories out a day, like, that's awesome. And what that ultimately turns into is just like this giant wave, that people can just kind of like surf on every day when it comes to the news that they care about. Because ultimately, like, I'll write about what people want to read, and what people want to read is about muscle cars and trucks.
Right.
So there we are.
And you kind of mentioned fit, and you already dove into like who is your user base, because I think of Car and Driver, right? I've seen their site. I look through that every once in a while, and they have a sense of like a Kelly Blue Book. Here's the top cars to look at, but also it's very focused on the German luxury performance market, right? You always see Beamers at the top, the Porsches, that kind of thing. You mentioned domestic specifically, and then obviously muscle cars and truck. Would you say that your fit in the market is essentially a publisher, a content machine for that specific niche group? Is there anything else that you'd classify yourself as, or muscle cars and trucks as?
I would say Tripower Media will always have a specialty in the automotive vertical. Um, right now, as it is, I live in Southeast Michigan. So what's in Southeast Michigan? Well, you've got Ford, you've got GM,
Right.
FCA, now Stellantis. So it's like I'm kind of just taking, you know, the circumstances of where I live, and also like my expertise, and just applying it. So like nothing against Car and Driver and the other guys that just want to write about or have like a preference to, we'll say like Porsche or BMW or electric cars or what's in it like or like any of the JDM scene, like that's all great. But yeah, for me, I've sort of also like I try to straddle the line between like that sort of like nitty gritty, like here's a full breakdown on like a new aftermarket engine and like here's how to add new cylinders to it or excuse me, not cylinder pistons to it and things like that. It was like because again because I'm like the trained journalist, I'm constantly churning out unique content that is more new product focused, such as we'll say like there's a new Chevy Silverado that's about to come out. And it's got new variants and it's got a new interior. So and it's got new engine updates and stuff like that. So I've spilled no shortage of ink, pixels, how whatever you want to measure it, on reporting that,
Right.
um, with interviews from the subject matter experts. And again, like this is just because as a journalist, this is what journalism primarily is. It's not just like, oh, let's get the press release and the assets from the brand and just like write how we want to write it, or let's just like fly on every like in media trip invite and just do like YouTube video walkarounds without necessarily like kind of moving the needle forward or providing um, further information, further context. Um, I think that and the interesting thing is, as I've had this site and as I've been producing unique content, I've kind of seen the industry wake up out of the lull a little bit, where you're seeing more and more sites pursue their own unique content. I think a couple of websites that are doing a good job right now are Road and Track and The Drive. I think when you want to just talk about like unique content per like story, like so, like everyone is going to write about like a new vehicle reveal, and us as well if it follows into like our niche. So like if it's a truck, it's an American truck, yeah, absolutely. um but like they also do a good job at getting their own like interviews, getting their own scoops, stuff like that. So like my friend Lucas, who was one of my interns just last year, now got a job at Road and Track, and he just interviewed the CEO of Stellantis, which owns FCA, and it's like that's a very I'm proud of that. Like I'm proud that I've helped them get to that point. But it's also cool to see like the other you know other outlets kind of doing that too, because if you're just kind of regurgitating the content as blogs often do and you're not really contributing, then like what's the what's the point of your existence as a site? I've always believed in unique content, and I take pride in honestly in like the ability to report on stuff that just people cannot get access to. I'm over my career as an automotive journalist, like I definitely made my inroads, and I'm usually not the one uh, hanging out at, we'll say like the snack bar at a media event. Like I will be asking an executive questions for like 45 minutes. Like that's a people know me as that person.
Right.
So it's I try to just sort of like set that example. And I'm not going to take credit for like where the industry is moving right now, but it's definitely like correlating with the philosophy of unique content that I've been pushing, and it's cool to see. Ultimately, I would like to see us be more at like the top of the heap, but I know that it doesn't happen overnight, and that kind of just goes back to how I how my philosophy on the whole thing, which is just patience, and not just patience, but also consistency. we have both of those in spades, and we apply that consistency, like I was saying, like every day, where we're always pushing out um, content that focuses on what people truly want to read. Granted, if there's a major global event such as COVID or such as Russia Ukraine right now, you will see you'll see some setbacks in the traffic and in the revenue. Like we've seen, I what I'm seeing right now with in terms of like Russia Ukraine is like the same stuff I saw in March and April of 2020. It was when COVID really started to take off. It's like people are a little bit more focused on that right now, and it's just like, I'm not CNN. It is what it is. Like we will tie in whatever whatever we can, like relevance. So for example, like when it comes to uh, the Russia Ukraine thing, everyone is either pulling out. They're like Ford pulled out a joint venture operation. General Motors stopped exporting vehicles to Russia. Stellantis actually has employees in the Ukraine, and they've set up a fund for Ukrainian refugees. So like we'll do stuff like that. Ultimately, though, like it's not in our scope to be that outlet that's going to get the traffic from something like that. Now, granted, like if there's this massive like automotive global event that theoretically involves the Corvette or something, then
Right.
yeah, we'll probably be able to ride that wave pretty good. So it's just give and take. You can't expect like a food blog to do anything uh, very impactful when it comes to a situation like this. So yeah, just having that like philosophy of patience. Don't hit the panic button. Do what you can, and just kind of like just keep the resolve. And as the situation continues to unravel is kind of like the only thing I really can do. Like from a very without completely going insane, and
Right.
I don't want to go insane. So
Right. Yeah. I would agree with you. I don't think anybody really wants to, but so you're talking about little pieces of advice already, and coming from a business owner, and you're experiencing this, and you're going through all these different changes, and I'm going to make it a little challenging for you, and I'm going to ask you to filter it down to probably like one or two. So if you, and there are publishers watching here, but for maybe one or two pieces of advice for a publisher that's trying to navigate the industry, as you and Jason have very, very efficiently, really, if I were to think about it and knowing our relationship, what would you say?
for a publisher that is just getting in, or a publisher that we'll say is got some experience and is willing to jump in and go on their own.
That's a good question. I would say I said two. So let's do, can we do one for each? I think one on a publisher getting in, because you guys have experienced that and you started from scratch, but you had some experience. I think you can speak to an established publisher. What about one for each?
I would say that if you're just getting in now, there's there's so much more information and experience and knowledge that I'll say like I didn't necessarily have. Um, so you can probably just spend a weekend on YouTube, for example, and listen to some pretty brilliant minds talk about what you need to do to get started. I even see like like WordPress and Squarespace and all these different like themes and stuff. People make it easier and easier to sort of like put this all together as a service, as a package. So don't necessarily like take that opportunity to use those services or those products, because it takes an incredible level of IT skill and web development skill to do it from scratch, right? The other thing is that if you're creating content, you can't even from like the ground level. There's no getting around SEO. There just isn't. How you apply it is going to be more up to up to the user. I personally try to make it a very organic experience. I don't necessarily um, try to overload the system with anything in particular. And I find that, just again, going back to the consistency, um, if you're just consistent, that ultimately will bring you to the top. And you'll see some major SEO wins, even SEO dominance. And again, there's formulas available, not formulas, but there's formats available, and there's expertise available at everybody's fingertips to get it, to do that. What is, I think, at some point, because like anyone can start a blog and create content like tomorrow or today, but if you're not consistent, it won't go anywhere. So people get frustrated on just that commitment that is ultimately required. Like for me, it's a career, it's a full-time thing. I'm not a hobbyist. I don't like I'm not a moonlight blogger. This is what I do every day, and it's a conscious choice for me to have this as my career. Some people can have two jobs and get away with it. Um, some people kind of get like a blog going. It's got like a cult following, and 150, 200,000 viewers, like readers a month. And that's all well and good. If that's all you want, and you say like you've got your very good, well-paying day job, like, yeah, don't quit it. You can use this as supplemental income if you want. But for me, I'm sort of, I'm a long view guy. And I think that, basically, like, it's not going to just stop with muscle cars and trucks. It's just like muscle cars and trucks is just first. Going back to answer your question again about someone who's maybe been in this for a little while and started off their own venture, there's it, there's never going to be like the perfect time, right? You're gonna either you're gonna have a couple variables that just aren't going to go your way, and that's life. You could be
Right.
you could be unemployed, you could be broke, you don't necessarily have the money to to fund your idea, um, out of like the gate to maybe like the point that you wanted to. But that's, if you, again, are just patient and consistent, and you trust that there is an organic process to it all, you will eventually have that. You'll eventually have revenue. You'll eventually be able to onboard people. Um, you don't want to necessarily like stick your nose up in the air too, and not know when to ask for, either to ask for help, or also to say that like you're perhaps, I don't want to say like that you're too good for something, because that's like ultimately, like, we have standards, and we have like ethics, and we believe that having that compass is ultimately like a net positive thing. Does that mean that you might like miss out on what, like a traffic grab, so to speak? Um, I mean, that's up to you to decide. Some people are more shameless than others. For me, I'm I'm full of shame. So we gotta like, I just kind of like keep it. I keep it as like I just try to keep that balance, um, and it just, but it depends. Like, and I know that like through my understanding of this whole thing, and my career as a content creator, as a business owner, and as a journalist, I know that like I don't necessarily have to write about cars for the model to be successful. I can do food. I can do travel. I could do whatever I wanted. Really, it's just a matter of like, basically, it's kind of pulling away like the content itself, and just sort of like looking at the formula, right? So it's like, you know solving for X, right? Like if X is like, traffic and revenue, you could factor in whatever content you want. Really, it's just you still it doesn't change that you still have to be hyper consistent, and that you still have to be patient if you're going to do it organically. Now, if you've got like venture capital money, you've got a rich uncle or something, someone's willing to sort of like, what do you want to call it, like bankroll you or float you for a year or two or three, because again, it will take a couple of years if you're doing it organically for you to really see the returns. That do it if you think that that's what you want to do. For me, I'm keeping it organic. We don't have VC. We don't have any rich uncle bankrolling our venture. We were just confident in that we had all the parts right to fire up this engine, and I think the results so far have spoken for themselves. We have made an impact on the automotive media industry in ways that, like, most sites still struggle to do so even after like being around for 10, 20 years.
Right.
And that just comes from us doing a good job.
Right.
I do a good job. Jason does a good job. Chris does a good job. And being able to get, it's funny. Like it's almost like if you become what the industry ends up reading, then everyone will end up reading you too, because we're constantly being cited and sourced by bigger outlets, like we'll say, like I said before, like Road and Track, like The Drive, and there's others, and that kind of like helps generate awareness. It's huge for SEO, right? If you can get other sites to organically link back to you, and not because you emailed them asking them for like a hyperlink back, but because you're doing something that is so damn undeniable that people are gonna like want to write about it as well. And the good ones will always credit you. The good ones will always credit you. There's no law that says that you're entitled to a hyperlink, which is the frustrating thing. Blog writing and content creation is still very Wild West. And it gets even worse when you go into like social media, because I've seen people like ripping photos and videos from others like all the time. Like there's no credit for anything. And if you are the one always like creating that unique content, but you're not necessarily seeing the returns on the traffic, that can be really frustrating. And you might get the SEO win over time, right? Because it's over time. You can't just like do like one thing good and everyone links back to it like one time, because you're going to still get buried by the bigger fish. It is what it is. So you still have to be consistent on the content. It is a constant test of patience. It truly. And you'll learn a lot about yourself along the way for sure.
Cool. Well, no, I appreciate it. I think those are both very similar, but I think made for, like you said, the established publisher or somebody who's just getting in. So last question for you is on contact. If the publishers watching, people who maybe have direct campaigns, anything like that, what's the easiest way for them to get in contact with you guys at Tri-Power and Muscle Cars and Trucks?
If anyone wants to reach out to me, it's tripowermediallc@gmail.com. I don't believe there's a dash in there. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, or if anyone wants to see the site and what we're about, it's musclecarsandtrucks.com. Type it in this, you type it in the bar, you can search it. We've got thousands of articles, thousands. You might even find us being mentioned on a bigger site, on that any given day. So
perfect. Well, sounds good. Everybody, thanks for watching the diDNA Dialogue today. If you have questions, comments, go ahead and leave them in the comment section below. If you have ideas on who you'd like to see on the next diDNA Dialogue, also let us know. Manny, thanks for jumping on and sharing your story today.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks.